the 10 red flags to look for when you're screening for tenants. Before I start, I'm going to share a story with you. A few years back, I normally in the morning I would call sellers whose properties did not sell. I called this guy. His property was listed by a couple realtors. He wasn't able to sell the property. Long story short, I talked to him. He wanted me to take a look at the house. I went by the house. He had a duplex. The tenant downstairs had 2 dogs, 2 cats. The tenant upstairs on the second floor had a dog, a cat, a snake, a bird, and a tarantula. And while I was visiting the property, she allowed me access to the attic. The attic was unfinished. When I made it to the attic, she had laid out a seance with crystals, candles, veils of various colors, and feathers all throughout the attic. So needless to say, that property was a major challenge for the owner in trying to get it sold. My point is, you don't know who you're renting to. So it's important that you take your time when you're screening for tenant. So I'm going to cover top 10 things that I believe you should look for that are a red flag that you should keep an eye on. Now, before I start, this one is a big newbie no-no. You have a lot of folks that just became landlords, or maybe you simply have a bad habit, and they would advertise a property before it's ready. You should never advertise a property before it's ready. If you're running ad for a property, that property should be move-in ready. And by move-in ready means all the repairs that are required have already been completed. The place is clean and ready to go. Assuming you are crazy enough to run ads for a property that's not ready, this is where you run into this number on the list that you need to look for a red flag. If your place is not ready and you're running ads and a tenant shows up and they are willing to rent that property in that condition, saying, oh, don't worry about painting this, I'll paint it. Don't worry about fixing this, I will fix it. That is a big red flag. The reality is the way the relationship starts is the way it ends. If they have such low standards and low expectation, they're probably not going to be a good fit for you in your rental. So move on. Number 2, the emergency renter. This prospect shows up and they are in the rush. They don't have time. They don't even want to complete the application. Sometimes they'll show up with the first month's rent, security deposit, and willing to even pay a few more months in advance just to get their foot in the door, get the keys from you, and take possession of that property. Do not rent to that individual. It's not going to play out well for you. You've taken the applications from the tenant, from that prospect, and you've requested documentation from them, whether it's check stubs, whatever documentation that you request. And the documentation that they submit are inaccurate or incomplete. So they didn't provide you the necessary information for you to really properly screen them. That's a red flag. The applicant has unverifiable income or inconsistent income. That's also a red flag. You have an applicant, they're nice, let's say they have good rental history, but the income does not meet the minimum or 3 times the rent. So if your rent is $1,000 and they have an income that is less than $3,000 a month, proceed with caution. That is a red flag. They have too many animals. Anything more than 2 is too many. If you have 5 or 6 dogs or you're hoarding cats, you need to buy your own house. You should not expose anybody else to that problem. So too many animals or dangerous breed of animals can create also an issue, especially if you have multifamily rental situations. There are other occupants. You don't want to hear about the dog attacking someone, and in some instances, you may not even be able to acquire insurance for your rental if the insurance company finds out that you're housing a dangerous animal. They have restrictions in some of the policies. You're holding an open house, and let's say your appointment is for 5 o'clock. The prospect doesn't show up on time. They show up late. They didn't call. They didn't even notify you they were running late. They just show up out of the blue late. That is someone who's inconsiderate. You should be careful with that. Or they show up and they have a very difficult disposition or personality, or they're very demanding or disrespectful. Again, the way it starts is the way it ends. The serial eviction. It's like they've had a, just like everywhere they've been to, they've had an eviction. That's a red flag. Criminal records. Now, a long time ago, we had a guy that applied with us. He came for a tour, young guy, he was about 25 years old. And he mentioned at the end of the tour that he had an arrest for drug possession, weed possession, marijuana possession. And that's all he had on his record. His income was, he had good income, good rental history, no eviction, and he had this criminal situation on his records. We ended up renting to him. He stayed with us for about 5 or 6 years. He saved some money while he stayed with us, and he ended up buying his own property. Now, is it gonna pan out that way every time when you're dealing with an individual with criminal records? This is a delicate situation that should be evaluated on a case-by-case basis, but an individual that shows up with a number of criminal records is definitely a red flag. This one is a little nuanced. The prospect shows up at the open house or the showing for the rental, and they are bad-mouthing their previous landlord. They're telling you about everything that's wrong. It sounds like they're auditioning for the Victim Olympics. Anything that can go wrong has gone wrong with them. And yet, when you ask enough questions, you find out they've been there for 2 years, 3 years. But it's a bad situation, and now they have to move. That is a red flag. You should take that in consideration. Now, these are my 10 red flags when screening tenant. I hope they are helpful to you. I wish you the best of luck.